Hello everyone. I am Six Path Weeb, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's fanfiction topic is, what if Naruko captivated devils and angels alike? Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. The content on this channel is created purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, let's get started. Naruko sprang up from the ground in a rush, her muscles and joints protesting at the sudden movement. She paused, placing a hand over her chest as she took slow, steady breaths. The air around her carried a strange, smoky scent, like a campfire that had burned for too long. For a moment, she simply stood there, blinking and looking around, trying to understand where she was. All around Naruko stretched a land unlike anything she had ever seen. Dark rocks covered the ground, and glowing rivers of warm, red light flowed between them like gentle streams. Above her, the sky was filled with soft gray clouds that drifted lazily, sprinkling tiny flecks of ash that floated down like quiet snow. It felt mysterious, but not frightening, just different, as if she had stepped into a dream. Naruko tilted her head thoughtfully. She had traveled to many places before, but nothing quite like this. Where could I be? She wondered aloud, her voice calm and curious. Though she didn't have the answer, she felt a small spark of excitement. New places meant new discoveries. Carefully, she bent her knees and tried to stand properly. Her hand reached out to a nearby rock for support, but the stone crumbled softly beneath her touch, causing her to tumble gently onto the ground again. Oof, she said, letting out a small laugh as she landed. She rubbed her shoulder, then lay back for a moment, gazing up at the cloudy sky. Even though she felt a little sore, she smiled. I guess I just need to take it slow, she told herself. She rested there for a while, watching the drifting clouds, until her eyes began to feel heavy. Naruko woke with a soft gasp, sitting upright in her seat. For a second, she looked around in confusion, her bright eyes scanning her surroundings. Then, as the sounds of quiet bocce and the gentle hum of movement reached her ears, she relaxed. She was on a train. The soft rocking of the carriage and the low murmur of passengers made her smile. Outside the window, lights flickered past like fireflies in the night. She remembered now, she was traveling, exploring a new place once again. Naruko stretched her arms and glanced at the people around her. Some were chatting softly, others gathering their belongings as the train began to slow down. Everyone seemed in such a hurry, rushing toward the doors. Naruko chuckled quietly. There's no need to rush, she said to herself. The journey is just as important as the destination. Instead of joining the crowd, she stayed seated for a moment longer, enjoying the peaceful rhythm of the train. Then, with a small, thoughtful smile, she gently tapped her fingers together. At once, the shadows near her feet shimmered softly, like ripples in water. They curled and swirled in a quiet, magical dance before wrapping around her in a gentle, dark glow. In the blink of an eye, Naruko was gone, leaving behind nothing but an empty seat and a calm, quiet space. No one noticed. The station was busy, full of life and movement, and everyone was focused on their own paths. Beyond the train, the city waited, bright, lively, and filled with secrets. It was a place where the ordinary and the magical lived side by side, hidden beneath a soft veil of wonder. Gentle, unseen forces kept everything in balance, allowing curious hearts like Naruko's to explore freely. And somewhere within that glowing city, Naruko reappeared, her eyes shining with excitement. All right, she said softly, looking around with a grin. Let's see what adventures are waiting for me here. Leaping across the high rooftops of Kyoto, a swift shadow moved gracefully under the evening sky. That shadow was Naruko, and a bright, carefree smile spread across her face as she stretched her legs at last. The long train ride had been noisy and uncomfortable, far from her favorite way to travel. Still, the protective barrier around Kyoto meant she had no choice but to arrive the ordinary way. If she had used her more magical abilities, she would have been noticed immediately. But now she was inside the city. Now, she was free. As long as she kept her powers gently hidden, she could pass through unnoticed, just another yokai in a city full of them. Kyoto was as beautiful as she remembered. It was the kind of place that made visitors want to stay forever. Naruko knew that feeling well, because long ago, she had helped create this very city. She had woven the strong, shimmering barrier that protected it, a barrier that still stood, quietly doing its job without needing her guidance. She had loved Kyoto deeply and had lived there for centuries, watching over its people with care. But Naruko had always been someone who followed the wind. Staying in one place for too long made her restless, curious about what lay beyond the horizon. So one day, she had left, leaving behind only a thoughtful note for her successor, explaining how to care for the barrier if it ever needed attention. That had been 200 years ago. She had not returned since, until now. I'm not sure how I feel about all this modernization, Naruko murmured to herself as she dashed lightly across rooftops. Tall skyscrapers rose into the sky where quiet streets once lay, their glass surfaces reflecting the golden hues of sunset. She ran along their sides with ease, then flipped neatly onto the roof of an apartment building, her movements smooth and effortless. Below her, the city buzzed with life. Market stalls displayed colorful potions and curious trinkets. On rooftop gardens, children laughed and played games, their animal ears and tails visible without worry. They had grown up in the safety of Kyoto's barrier, never needing to hide who they were. Naruko couldn't help but smile at the sight. Then again, she said softly, there's nothing more fun than this. A few children pointed upward, catching a glimpse of her swift movement. To them, she was just another magical being racing through the sky. Pausing for a moment, Naruko placed her hands and feet lightly against the smooth glass of a tall building. She looked at her reflection, not out of pride, but curiosity. She had changed over the years. Her long, spiky silver hair shimmered in the fading light. Her skin was warmly tanned, and her cheeks still carried the whisker-like marks she had been born with, though they now appeared a bit bolder. But her eyes were what stood out the most. Once, they had been bright blue, full of wonder. Now, they glowed a soft gold, like sunlight captured in a gentle flame. They were not frightening. They were strong. Naruko studied her reflection for a moment, then smiled quietly. She didn't need to know every part of herself to keep moving forward. With a light push, she sprang away from the glass, leaving no mark behind as she soared through the air once more. She leapt across great distances with ease, her movements as natural as breathing. Closing her eyes briefly, she let the wind rush past her, lifting her hair and brushing against her face. This was her favorite way to travel. Not inside crowded trains or cars, and not through complicated magic. Just her own strength, her own spirit, carrying her forward. It was the simple joys like this that made her long life feel bright and meaningful. And as Naruko raced across the glowing city of Kyoto, she felt something warm in her heart. She was home again. A few minutes later, the silver-haired traveler let out a long sigh as she balanced carefully along the side of a tall building, a paper map fluttering in her hand. All right. I take it back, Naruko muttered, brushing a strand of golden hair from her face. Skyscrapers are confusing. She studied the map again, turning it this way and that, trying to match it with the endless rows of buildings around her. So much had changed since she last visited. The landmarks she remembered were hidden among bright lights and busy streets. Maybe I should have learned how to use one of those navigation gadgets, she said thoughtfully. But something tells me it wouldn't help much here either. Naruko folded the map with a soft huff and looked out across the city. Despite her frustration, her eyes sparkled with curiosity. There was something exciting about exploring a place that had grown and changed so much. Now, if I were a grumpy old monkey, she murmured, tapping her chin. She paused, then smiled to herself. Somewhere peaceful. Somewhere with trees. Closing her eyes, Naruko reached out with her senses, gently and carefully, like sending a whisper across the wind. She didn't want to disturb anyone, especially not the hidden spirits who might notice her presence. Today was meant to be quiet. After a moment, her eyes opened wide. Ah! Found you. With renewed energy, she leapt gracefully from building to building, then made her way through the city streets and onto a train that carried her toward the outskirts. The busy noise slowly faded, replaced by calm and the rustling of leaves. At last, she arrived at a small wooded area untouched by the rush of time. Tall trees swayed gently, and the air felt fresh and welcoming. Nestled within the grove stood a simple wooden house, surrounded by a modest garden. Naruko's expression softened. He really never moved, she said with a quiet laugh. This was the home of the Oracle, a mysterious old monkey spirit known for her wisdom. Few had ever met her, and even fewer truly understood her gift. Some said she could sense danger before it came. Others believed she could see the future itself. But everyone agreed on one thing: when the Oracle called for you, you listened. Naruko stepped forward, feeling a faint shimmer as she passed through protective seals she herself had placed long ago. They still worked perfectly, guarding the home from the outside world. Reaching the door, she took a steady breath and knocked. It opened almost immediately. Naruko. You've come. A cheerful voice exclaimed. Standing in the doorway was the Oracle, just as Naruko remembered her, short and sturdy, with warm auburn fur and bright, glowing green eyes that seemed to see everything at once. She wore a simple lilac kimono and wooden sandals, her expression full of delight. Naruko crossed her arms, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "Hello, Rin. You're just as lively as ever." The oracle laughed, a light and joyful sound. "And you're just as strong and spirited. Come in, I've been waiting for you." Naruko stepped inside the cozy home, looking around at the familiar surroundings. Despite the years, everything felt the same, comfortable, peaceful, and full of quiet stories. "So," Naruko said, glancing at the oracle with curious eyes, "you said you saw something important?" The oracle nodded, her expression softening into something thoughtful. "Yes," she said gently. "A future filled with new paths. And a very special journey. I think you're going to like this one." Naruko smiled, her earlier frustration completely gone. "Well then," she said, settling in, "I'm listening." In the town of Kuo, 1 month later. Kuo Academy was the only private school in the peaceful town of Kuo. Once an all-girls school, it had become co-ed a few years ago and was now known for its excellent grades, lively clubs, and bright students who filled its halls with energy and dreams. Naruko-sama. A tired groan escaped Naruko as she slowly lifted her head from her folded arms on the desk. Her golden hair shimmered in the sunlight pouring through the window, and her bright blue eyes blinked sleepily as she looked toward the familiar voices. There they were again. The trio who had somehow decided she was their mentor, their guide, and, most puzzling of all, their hero. Naruko sighed, though there was no real anger in it, just the soft exhaustion of someone who had lived a very long life and was still getting used to school all over again. The 3 boys approaching her, Matsuda, Motohama, and Issei, were well known throughout the school, though not always for the best reasons. They were loud, curious, and often got themselves into silly trouble. But beneath all that, Naruko could tell they weren't bad at heart. They simply needed guidance. And perhaps a little patience. Matsuda had once been a star athlete but now seemed more interested in daydreaming than running laps. Motohama wore glasses and loved observing everything around him, often making surprising guesses about people. And Issei, well, Issei was the most energetic of the 3, always speaking before thinking, but his enthusiasm could sometimes be charming. Naruko rested her chin on her hand and watched them approach. "What is it this time?" she asked, her tone calm but curious. "We need your wisdom," Issei declared dramatically. Naruko blinked. "My wisdom?" "Yes," Motohama added. "You always know what to do. You stay calm, you smile, and somehow everything works out." Matsuda nodded eagerly. "You're like a hero in a story." For a moment, Naruko didn't respond. A hero. That word echoed softly in her mind. Long ago, she had dreamed of being someone important, someone who could bring light into the lives of others. Over the years, that dream had changed shape many times, but it had never truly disappeared. She let out a small, thoughtful hum. "Well," she said at last, sitting up straighter, "if you're looking for advice, then start by trying your best. Not just for yourselves, but for others too." The trio looked at her, surprised. "Being kind," Naruko continued, "working hard, and helping people when they need it, that's what really matters. If you do that, everything else will fall into place." The boys exchanged glances. "That actually makes sense," Matsuda admitted. Motohama adjusted his glasses. "Unexpected, but logical." Issei grinned. "You really are amazing, Naruko-sama." Naruko couldn't help but smile, a warm and genuine expression. Maybe school wasn't so bad after all. When she had first arrived at Kuo Academy as an exchange student from England, she hadn't been happy about it. In fact, she had tried everything she could to avoid coming. After all, she had already experienced more years than most people could imagine. Sitting in classrooms again hadn't exactly been on her list of wishes. But she had come anyway. Because someone she trusted had told her it mattered. Because something important was going to happen here. And perhaps, because a small part of her still wanted to belong somewhere. At first, things had been difficult. Rumors had spread quickly, and misunderstandings had made her stand out in ways she hadn't expected. But Naruko had faced it the only way she knew how, with patience, kindness, and a bright smile that refused to fade. Little by little, things began to change. Students started to see her not as someone strange, but as someone dependable. Someone kind. Someone worth knowing. Naruko leaned back in her chair, looking out the window at the clear blue sky. Hey, she said suddenly. The trio perked up. Yes? Why don't we all try something new today? She suggested. Maybe join a club, or help someone who needs it. Issei pumped his fist. Let's do it. Motohama nodded thoughtfully. A productive plan. Matsuda grinned. Yeah. Let's make today count. Naruko watched them rush off with renewed determination, her smile lingering. Perhaps this place really would become something special. And perhaps, just perhaps, her long-held dream might finally find its way to her here, in this quiet town, surrounded by new friends and new beginnings. There was one thing Naruko loved most about going to the school, even more than the lively chatter in the halls and the bright smiles of her classmates, and that was pranking. Back in her ninja days, she had been gently encouraged to set her pranks aside. Something about professionalism and setting a good example. Naruko understood, of course. Mostly. Still, a part of her missed the harmless mischief that once brought laughter to her village. Now, in this new world, she finally had the chance to let that playful spirit shine again. To Naruko, the school felt like a grand stage for creativity. She never caused harm or real trouble, her pranks were always light-hearted and safe. A chalkboard that wrote silly compliments on its own, a hallway that briefly echoed with cheerful giggles, or a perfectly timed paper bird that fluttered past someone's nose. Her goal was simple: make people smile, even if they rolled their eyes first. Outside of her playful antics, Naruko blended in as an ordinary student surprisingly well. Her grades were excellent, thanks to her sharp memory and wide range of experiences. Some lessons felt easy compared to her ninja training, but she still approached everything with curiosity and enthusiasm. Her social life was just as bright. Naruko had a warm, energetic personality that drew people in. She loved making new friends, sharing stories, and cheering others up when they needed it. Sometimes she could be a little too energetic, but most people found it charming rather than troublesome. Still, there were moments when she wished for a bit of quiet. Hey, Naruko. A voice called out one afternoon. Naruko turned to see Matsuda hurrying toward her, waving his arms excitedly. What is it this time? She asked, raising an eyebrow but smiling anyway. I just heard something important, Matsuda said, catching his breath. Someone from the Occult Research Club is looking for you. They said their president wants to meet you. Naruko tilted her head, her bright eyes gleaming with curiosity. So they finally noticed, she murmured. For the past week, she had been leaving tiny hints of her presence, little tricks and cheerful oddities that made people wonder. Nothing big, just enough to spark interest. Naruko grinned, a spark of excitement lighting up her face. Well, she said, brushing a strand of golden hair behind her ear, looks like it's time for a new adventure. And with that, she set off toward the Occult Research Club, her steps light and her heart full of playful anticipation. Whatever waited for her there, one thing was certain. Naruko would face it with courage, kindness, and maybe just a little bit of harmless mischief. The student council office was quiet and tidy, with sunlight streaming gently through the tall windows. Papers were neatly stacked, and a soft breeze made the curtains sway like they were dancing. At the large desk sat Sona Shitori, the calm and thoughtful student council president. She adjusted her round, red glasses and looked at the two girls seated across from her. Behind her stood her loyal friend Tsubaki, who watched over the room with a composed and gentle presence. I'm surprised, Sona said in a measured voice, that you haven't spoken to either of them yet. Akeno Himejima tilted her head slightly, her warm smile never fading. What do you mean, Sona? Sona's gaze shifted to the other girl, who had been quietly enjoying her lunch. Rias Gremory looked up, her long crimson hair catching the light like a soft flame. After a moment, Rias set her lunch aside and spoke. I've been thinking carefully about how to approach Issei. He's a bit unusual. Sona raised an eyebrow, curious. Unusual how? Rias folded her hands neatly. He's kind-hearted, but not very confident. I want to help him grow stronger, not just in ability, but in spirit. I think the best way is to guide him slowly, so he can discover his own courage. That sounds more like you, Sona replied, her expression softening just a little. And the other student? At this, Rias's eyes brightened. Ah, Naruko, she said. Akeno smiled wider, clearly fond of the name. She's quite something. Sona leaned forward slightly. Tell me about her. Rias nodded. Naruko is new to the academy. She's energetic, cheerful, and always smiling. No matter what happens, she keeps going forward. It's inspiring. Akeno added gently, she has a way of making people feel included. Even students who are shy or lonely seem to open up around her. Sona considered this. That's a rare quality. Rias continued, there's something special about her. Not just her energy, but her presence. It's warm, like sunshine on a cold morning. And even though she jokes around a lot, I can tell she carries a quiet strength inside. Tsubaki spoke for the first time, her voice calm. She sounds like someone who brings people together. Yes, Rias agreed. Exactly. That's why I want to meet her properly. Not to test her or challenge her, but to understand her. Sona gave a small nod. And how do you plan to do that? I've asked a friend to invite her for tea, Rias said with a gentle smile. No pressure. Just a conversation. Akeno clasped her hand softly. I think she'll accept. Naruko seems to enjoy making new friends. Sona leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. Then I look forward to hearing how it goes. Outside, laughter echoed faintly through the school grounds. Unbeknownst to them, Naruko herself was running across the courtyard at that very moment, her bright voice calling out to a group of students. She waved enthusiastically, her golden hair bouncing with each step, her eyes shining with excitement. Hey! Wait for me! She called, laughing. And just like that, the day felt a little brighter. Sona paused thoughtfully before asking, what else do we know about her? Rias gave a small shrug, her curiosity matching Sona's as she recalled what she had learned. Uzumaki Naruko, 18 years old. Silver hair and bright golden eyes. She stands just under 6 feet tall and has a striking appearance that makes her stand out wherever she goes. She transferred here about a month ago from a private school in Britain. Her grades are above average, and she is known for her excellent physical fitness. She's friendly and charismatic, though sometimes a little distant. Many students admire her, and she seems to have a natural way of bringing people together. And her abilities? Sona asked, noticing the lack of deeper details. She has strong magical energy for someone her age, Rias replied. It's noticeable, which could mean she's confident, or simply still learning to control it. She's also skilled in various forms of movement and discipline, which suggests she's well trained. Even without anything particularly special tied to her, her potential is impressive. Sona nodded slowly. She sounds promising, but still a mystery. Exactly, Rias said with a small smile. That's why I've invited her to meet me. A little later. Uzumaki-san, I've been looking for you. The club president has asked me to bring you to a meeting, said Kiba politely. Naruko turned with a calm smile. Ah, yes. I was expecting that. Since you're here, please lead the way. Kiba nodded and began walking. As they moved across the school grounds, he explained, our clubroom is in the old school building. The president appreciates its classic design. Naruko glanced ahead, taking in the scenery with quiet interest. It sounds charming. I don't mind the walk, it's nice to stretch after sitting in class. You're adjusting well, then? Kiba asked. I am, she replied. Though it has been a while since I've had such a structured routine. Soon, the old school building came into view. It stood tall and elegant, with polished wood and a welcoming atmosphere. Naruko studied it with a thoughtful expression. It's beautiful, she said softly. Not what I expected at all. Kiba smiled. It surprises most people. They entered the building and made their way to a large wooden door. After a gentle knock, Kiba announced, President, I've brought Uzumaki-san. Inside, the room was warm and inviting, lit softly by lamps. Comfortable chairs and a large table gave it a peaceful, almost homely feeling. Welcome, Naruko, Rias said as she entered the room, her expression calm and welcoming. Please, have a seat. Naruko nodded and sat gracefully. Thank you. This is a lovely place. Akeno approached with a tray of tea, her smile gentle. Would you care for some tea? I would, thank you, Naruko replied. Once everyone was settled, Rias leaned forward slightly. I'll be direct. You're not an ordinary student, are you? Naruko met her gaze, her golden eyes steady but kind. No, she answered simply. Rias smiled faintly. Then, what are you? Naruko paused for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Then she spoke softly. I suppose the simplest answer is, I'm something a little different. Someone who has traveled far and learned many things. Akeno tilted her head with interest, while Rias watched closely. After a brief silence, Naruko added with a gentle smile, but more importantly, I'm someone who wants to understand this place, and the people in it. The room grew quiet, not with tension, but with curiosity. Rias leaned back, her expression thoughtful yet pleased. I see. Then perhaps this meeting is just the beginning. Naruko nodded. I think so too. Rias took a small breath, her earlier nervousness softening into a gentle smile. The room felt quiet, not tense, but thoughtful, like the pause before a story takes a hopeful turn. Naruko stood up from the sofa, brushing a strand of golden hair behind her ear. Her bright eyes held curiosity rather than suspicion, and a warm, steady confidence seemed to glow around her. Well, it all sounds wonderful, she said kindly, tilting her head just a little. A place to belong, people to call family. That's something really special. As she spoke, something unusual happened. From her back, a pair of shimmering, silver wings unfolded, not sharp or frightening, but smooth and radiant, like moonlight reflecting on calm water. They stretched gently, catching the light in a way that made the whole room feel brighter. Akeno blinked in surprise, though her expression remained calm and graceful. Rias, however, looked genuinely amazed. There. Beautiful, Rias said softly. Naruko smiled, a little shy now. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to show you something important about me. She stepped forward, her wings folding neatly behind her. I don't fully understand what I am yet, she continued. But I know this, I want to grow, to learn, and to protect the people I care about. Not with force, but with kindness and courage. Rias listened carefully, her earlier seriousness now replaced with admiration. That's exactly why I asked you, Rias replied. Not because of power, but because of your heart. Naruko blinked, surprised. My heart? Rias nodded. Yes. A peerage isn't just about strength or magic. It's about trust, friendship, and standing beside each other. You already understand that better than most. Akeno gave a gentle laugh. Ara, it seems you might fit in perfectly. Naruko looked between them, her expression softening. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, slowly, she smiled, a bright, hopeful smile that seemed to light up the entire room. If that's the kind of place this is, she said, then I'd really like to be a part of it. Rias's eyes sparkled with joy. Then welcome, Naruko. The atmosphere changed completely. What had begun as a serious conversation became something warm and full of possibility. Naruko's wings shimmered once more before fading gently from view, as if they were simply a quiet promise waiting for the right moment. And in that cozy room, a new chapter began, not with conflict, but with friendship, trust, and the beginning of a family. Dear YouTube fam. And that brings us to the end of this part of the journey. There's a lot more coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's next. Each video is just a step forward, and the best is still ahead. If you enjoyed watching, make sure to support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Your support truly keeps everything going and helps this community grow stronger with every upload. Stay tuned, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next one. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.